Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video tutorial. In this video, we're going to talk about functions. This is video 9 in our PHP series, and today we're talking about functions. In the last video, we talked about while loops. In the previous video before that, we talked about for and for each loops. So today we're going to talk about functions. Let's get started. So here on our ideapro.io site that we do testing and demos with, in our last video we worked on the while loops, and we're going to talk about functions today. So we're going to get rid of all of this code here, and we're going to talk about PHP functions. All right, so we're going to get that cleared up. So now we have all this space available here to work on functions. All right, let's get all this just completely out of the, we'll leave a little bit just so we see the PHP functions. Okay, so functions, the reason behind functions is in code you want to write as little code as possible. You don't want to have to repeat yourself on a regular basis. If you have something done more than once, it's great to write a function because you might do it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So the idea is to think about the function and what that function needs to do before you write it. Write that function, that way you can use it over and over and over. So there's basically, in my eyes, there's two types of functions. There's a function that prints out code, and there's a function that that returns code. Okay, so I'm going to show you both ways really quick, and then we're going to get into function arguments and some other details. All right, so really easily, to start a function, you just type the word function, and then you choose a name for your function. Now, naming conventions can be to your choosing. You really need to follow some guidelines on naming, and I'm not going to really get into that in this video, but the function, basically you just need to use it as thinking about what that function is going to do. So in this function we're going to say show name, and we're going to open and close parentheses, and then we're going to come down the next line and we're going to do an open and close bracket. Okay, so now that is our function, but it doesn't do anything. So now we need the function to do something. Okay, so to run that function, we're going to say show name and then two open and close parentheses. So now we're executing that function. So this defines the function, and then this executes the function. So we're going to save that. We're going to come over here and refresh our page, and we see nothing because we've not told the function to do anything at all. So now in here we can come in and we can say echo, my name is Josh. Okay, and we come over here and when we refresh, and we see my name is Josh. And we can use that function just by using show name anywhere that we need to. We can do it as many times as we want. So, and see how it didn't break to a new line or anything like that. It's literally following what we're doing here. So let's add a break in there. We'll leave a space in there. So now my name is Josh. So we've repeated that, and that may be repeated on the same page or different pages. In the next video, we'll talk about including and requiring files to be able to bring in a functions page to your file. Okay, but so for now we're going to use this one time. We're going to say show name. Now in this function, we've just called this function with show name, open parentheses, close parentheses, and the semicolon. Because we're using echo here, we're echoing out what we want it to do when that function runs. Now, if we wanted to, we could say return, and then here we would need to say echo. Let's not do it yet. Let's save that, come over here and refresh, and see the function doesn't show anything at all. So if we say echo show name and refresh, now we have my name is Josh. So there's two ways to do a function like this. One is to return and one is to echo it out. So up here we could do echo, oops, we could remove that here and just do show name, and that function exists there. And depending on what that function does is dependent on what you actually use, whether you use echo or return. All right. Now, what if we say my name is, and we want this to be a variable that we call. So if we say name, save it, we come over here and refresh, it's going to say my name is $name. And if you remember from the first PHP video in this series, we use single quotes here on this string instead of double quotes. So anything in single quotes and use a $name, like a variable like this, it's going to print out $name. So if you want to show the variable $name, this is the way you would do it. If you want it to show the actual name, you would use double quotes here and then save and come over here, and it's not going to show us a name because it doesn't know what name is. Okay, so it's going to be blank, but we could also use single quotes here and then add a single quote here to cancel the string and see how this turned white in my code, and then use a period, and then after that use a period and start the string back up, right? So now we've put in this variable name inside of here, and even though it's in single quotes, now it would print if the function knew what name was. Okay, so now up here we're going to say name is equal to, and we're going to use single quotes, and we're going to say Josh. But our function doesn't know what name is because it's outside of this function. So if we come over here and refresh, it still says my name is, and it's blank. It doesn't know what that name is. Okay, so there's a couple ways that we can add name to that function, and one of the ways is to say global $name, and if we refresh over here, Josh. So basically it says, okay, name variable is loaded on this page, or function, this function's loaded on the same page as this variable name, as long as it's after. And so we're able to pull in name and use it inside of this function. That's only proper if you're using things. I mean, it's not, it can be proper either way, but I would only do that if you're using an object or an array or a constant. You know, a constant would actually come into the function. I would only use that if you're using an array or an object to use global. The best way to do it would be to pass name into this function. So here, we're going to come up here and we're going to say name. So we're going to call name, but then name also has to be here, name. Okay, we come over here and we refresh, and it says my name is Josh. So we'll change this to Tom. Come over here and refresh. My name is Tom. Now, we can move name, take it out of here and put it down here. And it works even down here because this function is already registered into PHP's memory for the page load, and so it can say, oh, okay, there's Tom, and it loads Tom. Now, one thing that is a problem is if you have a nothing here, and we come over here and refresh, this function actually just broke the entire page. And that's because we have a attribute or an argument missing from our function. If we wanted to run this and we didn't want to specify the name here inside the function we wanted to call name, so we could say if name is equal to nothing, default to name is equal to John, right? Whoops, didn't mean to highlight all that. So save. So now we refresh, it's still going to break. And that's because we're not calling anything here. Now what we can do up here is we can say name is equal to, and then 2 single quotes. And now if we refresh, the function's going to work. By adding this here, it's kind of giving it a default. So the default is nothing. And then inside here, we can say name, if name is equal to nothing, name is equal to John. So now if we come down here and we say $name, and we come over here and refresh, now it's going to say my name is Tom. And so Tom is going to show up instead of John because name is not blank. All right. So now we can add another variable here, and we can say age, or another argument I should say. Age is equal to 35. Okay. And so now if we come over here and we refresh, it's just going to say my name is Tom. Now it's calling 2 arguments in this here, and it's only using 1 up here. So we're still going to have a warning that says, you know, it's missing an argument. The function is missing an argument. So we really should say age is equal to, and then you can use 2 semicolons there, and then refresh, and now my name is Tom. So my name is Tom, and I am, whoops, $age, years old. Okay, so we come over here and refresh, and so now my name is Tom, and I'm 35 years old. All right, so again, we've echoed this out, and we've said age, you know, we've put in name and age here. Now let's say we don't want to have so many arguments in our function name. We could go back here and we could say user info is our variable, and it's an array, and it's going to be name is equal to Tom, age, oops, we want age, there we go, age is equal to, we don't need single quotes there, whoops, 35. Okay, so now we're going to get rid of this, and now we've created a user info variable for name and age. There's a couple of ways we can do this. We can either go back and change our function to accept the array, or we can say name, this one is equal to user info, and we can do name, and then user info and age, right? And so then we come over here and we refresh, and it says my name is Tom and I'm 35 years old. Let's change Tom to Mike, and Mike's age is 60. Okay, so now we refresh, and so now we have my name is Mike and I am 60 years old. Now, if we couldn't change that function and we wanted that information from an array, that's how we could call that function, is using the array values, right? But let's say we don't want to use it here and we want to just have one argument up here. We could just say info and change this down here to our array, user info. So the reason why I'm doing info up here and user info here is because I want to show you that the variables do not need to match. The names of the variables do not need to match, or the names of the argument. User info is here, info is here. You could call this details, right? Or if you want to just say user, right? So let's leave it as user, all right? So now we have user info and user info here, and our user info is an array. So now we're going to come back up here, and we don't need this because name doesn't exist anymore. It's not an argument. My name is user name, and then user age. Save. And we'll come over here. My name is Mike and I'm 60 years old. let's change this to Sam, and Sam is 28. Okay, so now we come over here and refresh. And so now my name is Sam and I'm 28 years old. So now we have the information in an array. And if we came up and used user info inside of this function and then hit refresh, my name is blank and I'm blank years old. Now that's actually giving a warning in PHP because user info does not exist. It's the reason why we need to use user instead of user info. But I just wanted to show you that user info is not passed. It's just the value of user info that is passed into whatever we call this variable here. Okay. So the next thing I want to show you is we need to, let's say, printing and returning. We got that. The next thing I want to show you is the function name. Okay, so each of your function names need to be unique. So we've used this this function here called show name, and if someone else has used that function in a plugin or another area of the page and it loads that same function at the same time it loads this, it's going to give us an error. So let's create another function up here called show name. And this one's just going to say what's happening. We're going to escape that. So we come over here and we refresh, and look what happens. We've got an error. The site's experiencing technical difficulties. Now we're running WordPress on this website as the example. So if you had PHP just running without WordPress, you wouldn't have that. This site is experiencing technical difficulties. You would need to turn on PHP debugging, which I'm going to do a video about that. But so now basically what's happened is it sees two function names with the same name and it's giving us an error. So if we change this one to show names, let's just add an S after it, and we come over here and refresh. Now our function down here is going to run because it is show name. It's no longer show names. Now if we wanted to still write a function called show name and we want to say what's happening, we would really need to say if, and this is a function built into PHP, function exists, and then our function name, which is going to be show name, right? So we're going to make that if statement. We're going to wrap it around this function here. And so we're saying if function exists, do this, but we don't want it to run if that function already exists. So what we need to do is we need to add a exclamation before this. Now in PHP that means not, and in other languages, you know, or other HTML, CSS, stuff like that, like in CSS, that doesn't mean not, it means important. Like you put that before important to say this color is important, right? But in PHP, we're going to say if not function exists, if the function name does not exist, then run this function, right? So if we do that, come over here and our function is still going to work. And we'll change this down here to Sammy. And Sammy is 21 years old. Okay, just to show you that it's actually working over here. So Sammy is 21. Okay, so now we're saying if the function does not exist, use this function, right? So if we take that out, the not out, then we're going to have, it's going to lock and it's not going to, the page is not going to render, right? So we're saying not, if the function does not exist, use that. And it's a safe way to, if you're writing a function that has, that you're like, ooh, that name is going to be kind of close to probably something else in the site that's going to be named the same function, you could use this if statement wrapped around your function. That way, when you load the page of something, if it doesn't work, then you know it doesn't exist, but it doesn't lock up and shut down the whole page, right? If it's on a functions.php page that's included in the entire website, and you do that, it will shut down the entire website. So you want to make sure that that function name doesn't exist. And the best way to do that is just to make a unique function name. All right. So in here, my company is Idea Pro, so we might say Idea Pro show name, or whatever specific to the site that you're building, right? Let's say you're building a site for Mike's products, right? So you might say Mike's products underscore show name. And that way you would call that down here. There we go. And then you wouldn't need any of that. And so now your function still runs, even though you've named it Mike's Products Show Name. Now you've guaranteed that you have a unique name, right? So you need to make sure that each one of your functions has a unique name. So that's all I have for this video. We're going to get into functions more and more in each step of the process here through our series. The next video, we're going to talk about including files, which is really important for your functions. Your functions need to be on a functions page, and you need to include that into your page, depending on what system you're using and stuff like that. So in the next video, we'll talk about includes and require wants and requires and stuff like that. But again, that's all I have for this video. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button if you like this video, subscribe, leave me a comment, and I will see you in the next video.